Yep, thank you. Our next report, I'm going to go ahead and ask Jeremy Kashman now to go ahead and we're going to get an update regarding some plans for 136th Street in front of the football stadium, between the football, what I call the Trail of Tears. There's been a lot of public conversation about students crossing that area, so we thought it important to ask Mr. Kashman to come and tell us what his thoughts are on that area.
Thank you for having me this evening. So the first thing I want to do is kind of talk about the overall site layout. I think everybody really knows the lay of the land through here, but the crosswalk right here at 136th Street, there's a path along the west side, and then there's some multi-use path along the north side of the road as well, and then a sidewalk along the south side. In our 2017 bond process, where we passed a series of projects, in that we included a project that would connect Keystone over to Rangeline Road with a multi-use path. So that includes a new bridge over Cool Creek. Our goal is to get that started this summer, and we're kind of up against the deadline because in order to clear some trees and meet our permit regarding the Indiana Bat, we need to get moving on that here by April 1st, so that should start to be seeing some work there in the next month or so. It is pretty tight in this area over here near Rangeline Road, but we're trying to stay just off of, we'll put a curb along 136th Street and then put the path right behind there. The other alternative was on the north side, was not available as the cemetery is there. As we started planning the project, there's been a lot of questions to why we don't place a pedestrian bridge here. So I wanted to kind of step through those aspects. One of the major reasons why is because of the topography of the land. Right at the intersection's at about 802 feet above sea level, and as you step up quickly to the north, it's roughly 16.5 feet taller. So pretty big change in elevation, and then as you move south, it actually does the opposite. So you actually have all the way down by the creek, the ground level's around 795, so it drops another 7 feet. So really, when you start to look at will a pedestrian bridge work in this area, you have to come obviously up from the roadway another 16.5 feet to get to the deck. So then you start looking into ADA concerns. So we need to have, if we're going to build a project, we need to make it accessible, and the rate for that is a 5% grade. So when you look at the elevations to the north and the elevations to the south, you really run up almost 200 feet to the north before you would ever be able to get your slope to be able to get back down. And then as you go south, you're not only trying to come down, but the ground's falling away from you. So you end up at like 470 feet is what it gets. So that actually takes you all the way down to the creek. Another constraint we have in this area is the floodway. So this map is directly from our GIS. This is publicly available, but this swath right here in the hatched area is the floodway. So typically we do not allow any fill in the floodway within the city. The blue area is the 100-year elevation. In that we can sometimes fill in that if we're offsetting it by a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1 ratio. Why that's significantly important in this instance is that in order to get that down, in order to get the elevation down from above the road, you would have to fill in the floodway, which is not permitted. So you could build some sort of structure and to allow water to flow through, but I think that would significantly add to the cost as well. And then, so the next question would be, can we build a tunnel? So the floodway kind of explains that. You'd have to significantly bring the grade of 136th Street up because the floodway elevation is only about 5 feet below the roadway elevation. So it's really challenging there. So something else that I looked at in trying to come up with other solutions was you could, sorry, let me reorient this. So north is up. If you wanted to confine everything right there, you could build the pedestrian bridge and then create a series of switchbacks through here. So on the north side, you need roughly 2 switchbacks to get up to the bridge, and then on the south side, you would need to have 3, and then you need to carry it over. Why that's significant in looking at cost of this structure as well, it's probably roughly $4 million for the first option, if you can even make it feasibly workable through the floodway scenario. In this option, we're probably in the $3 million range to make that work. So, and instead of, and one, I will say one way I got those costs is the city of Westfield actually is doing a federal aid project in which they're building a Monon bridge over State Road 32, and that project just bid for the construction alone was $3.7 million. So, and when I looked at the plans today, they're roughly similar along that first option. So, in order to work on how do we make our the concerns of this intersection go along with our path project, we have come up with another detail, which would be to this is directly out of our plan, so it's pretty engineering, I will say. But what we're going to do is narrow each lane down in this area by 2 feet. So by narrowing it down, it'll allow us narrower lanes is one means of speed control and traffic calming. And then it'll also allow us to get a pedestrian refuge in the middle. And so that way, when a police officer is not in session flagging traffic, someone comes to school later, we will also have a rapid flashing beacon similar to what we've installed on Rangeline Road. And then that'll allow the safe passage across 136th Street if someone's showing up a little bit later to class. The goal here would be that system could be turned off when there's a police officer at the intersection, so we don't have conflicting views, because that's one of my conflicting traffic control devices between the police officer and the rapid flashing beacon. Don't want to create any confusion in this area. And then the other side of this is we did look at some of our any accident data that we have from this area. So we pulled information all the way back to 2004, and since 2004 there have been 2 pedestrian accidents in this area. From what we can tell is that one was a car backing up into a pedestrian. So that we felt like was most likely in the parking lot itself and not out on the roadway. From what we can tell, the pedestrian involved did not go to the hospital. It was minor. And then the other one was at 7 a.m. in November of 2011, and a driver was heading eastbound on 136th Street, and they were apparently on their phone and clipped the foot of a pedestrian. What's important about that is that the pedestrian did not go by ambulance to the hospital or anything. They was actually treated just within the high school nurse's office. So that was positive to hear. Are there any questions?
Councilor Finkham.
You probably stated this at the beginning, we were talking about the path, but I was trying to take notes and catch up.
Yeah.
What is the timeline of installing this?
This would be a summer project, so we'd like to build this project while school is not in session for the summer.
Councilor Kimball.
Yeah, so are we adding any lighting for the area?
Yes, that's a good question. We are adding some supplemental lighting along 136th Street because that was one concern that we've also been given. There is actually a fair amount of lighting that's out there today. There's some Duke Energy, I think high-pressure sodium lights that are out there, but we're going to add the standard city LED street lights in the area.
Sure.
On the west end of the stadium, will there be a crosswalk? And this is, I think there's been some requests to maybe have lighting at the west end.
For now, we're only planning the crosswalk here at the main intersection, and then, but we are extending lighting through the entire area.
Councilor Campbell?
Jeremy, you said that the flashing beacon can be turned off and on. So does it stay on during the school day, or is it activated by a button when a pedestrian crosses?
So the power would only be, it would be disabled while the police officer's there. So they could turn it, when they get there in the morning, they could turn the power to it off and then turn it back on. It will be a push button crosswalk. So if you're a student walking up to the intersection, you'll hit the button and then it'll actuate.
Jeremy, so it appears to me that you considered 3 plans.
Correct.
The first plan, the grade that takes you 200 feet to the north, which is, I get that, why that's probably not great, that high school students probably won't walk north to go south.
Yes.
Okay, plus all the problems. The switchback was the second plan, and that seems like, are there any negatives to it other than cost?
I still have concern that we would get a lot of high school students using it, especially if you're parking in this area and you walk down. I know there's been talks of you could channelize students with fences or something like that. I've personally had the experience down by IUPUI's campus as there was construction going on that we were working on. There were kids that would physically just climb over the fence and walk through a construction zone to get where they were wanting to go. So we've done some informal research with high school students and found that our assumption was correct, that they would still most likely not walk over here to cross. So therefore, even if we did spend the money to build a bridge structure, that you would still have to make sure you have the redundancy down below.
So then the plan, and it sounds to me like you are actually proceeding with this plan. Your recommendation is the crosswalk.
That is correct.
Okay.
And we currently have this in our project plans, and that's and it's actually being no, it's 100% local.
Okay.
I was thinking for a second it's federally funded, but it's local money.
So what I'd like to do for people who are watching, I mean, I get what you said, but I haven't heard a strong, I mean, can you give me what the pros are, what the reasons are, how this will solve whatever problem we perceive is out there? How does this fix things? And because I think there's going to be question, I mean, this has been a hot topic.
Yeah, I think the question is how do we fix things, and that's kind of an odd question because it's there's between 2,000 and 2,500 students that cross this intersection daily, so that's anywhere between 4,000 and 5,000 trips across here, and we've had 2 pedestrian accidents.
Well, to me, that's part of the answer.
Yeah, and so I think this adds a layer of redundancy so that when we're taking the existing condition that statistically is safe, and then we're just adding a layer of redundancy here so that in the off-peak time when a police officer is not here, that between added lighting and then causing attention to be drawn to the crosswalk with the rapid flashing beacon, that will alert those drivers and bring more attention. There's always human error, and unfortunately we haven't been able to solve that, but I think this gives us a good solid option to keep this intersection safe moving forward.
And I think and the third thing was you said by narrowing the lanes, the speed would be reduced as well.
Correct.
Okay. Councilor Kimball?
Yes, have we talked to the school? Are they on board with what we're doing?
Yes, we have been in communication with them, and we've actually been working also with the police officer that's here during school times, and got some feedback on that as well.
While we have you, any other questions